Greetings, pilots and passengers. It's been a while since I've done a video, but I just like to let you know about what's going on about that. I've been working on a longer style video, which takes a lot of editing. It's difficult to do daily videos and then also do something a bit longer, so I thought I would just want to dedicate the time each day to just editing that, so get that video done. But I thought I'd at least do one daily video this week, just to keep you guys in the loop of what's going on, and also just because I found a really interesting article and it's a bit bonkers, to be fair. It's just always something going on, so I thought we could look at this together and let me know what you think as always. But yeah, so there is a longer style video coming. It's in the works, about halfway through editing it now. It's taken a good few hours to get through it, but I'm excited to share it with you guys. So yeah, the videos are on the way. Apologies for not posting, but yeah, videos are on the way. So today's article is from Natural News. I actually found this yesterday, but it's to do with Chernobyl, and Chernobyl is something I find very, very interesting. There's been a bit of a craze over Chernobyl as of late, with obviously the recent Chernobyl series a couple years ago or something that everyone was really into and obsessed with, and it got people really thinking about Chernobyl again. And even though Chernobyl is being managed, and obviously the reactor itself is covered in the sarcophagus, which is covered in the new shelter that they've built, Chernobyl is still a concern, and people are fearing that there will be another nuclear incident. So another nuclear incident is feared in Chernobyl as nuclear reactions smolder like embers in a barbecue pit. So this isn't over. So scientists raised the possibility of another nuclear accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant as fission reactions are smouldering once again in the nuclear reactor that melted down in 1986. This is according to the Institute for Safety Problems of Nuclear Power Plants in Ukraine. In a discussion last week about plans to dismantle the reactor, the Institute's Anatoly Doroshenko reported that sensors are currently tracking a growing number of neutrons streaming from an inaccessible room. If neutron levels go up further, they can set off a nuclear fission chain reaction, which is not good. And I think obviously the worry thing there is they can't really control that if the room itself is inaccessible. They can't manage what is occurring in that room. In a nuclear chain reaction, neutrons split the nuclei of nearby atoms, releasing additional neutrons. These, in turn, can split other atomic nuclei, generating more neutrons. When a nuclear chain reaction goes out of control, it produces a lot of energy all at once, causing a nuclear explosion. So, Neil Hyatt, a nuclear materials chemist at the UK's University of Sheffield, compared the nuclear reactions detected in the room to embers in a barbecue pit. But while the nuclear activity is still too weak to trigger a runaway nuclear chain reaction, the ISPNPP isn't ruling out the possibility of that happening in the future. So whilst at the moment it's looking reasonably weak, the possibility and the concern is still there that in the future there could be another nuclear event within Chernobyl. There are many uncertainties, the Institute's Maxim Sevelev said, but we can't rule out the possibility of an accident. So the ISPNPP is concerned about the rising neutron levels in room 3052 in Chernobyl's reactor 4. The room is home to fuel-containing materials, FCMs, which are lava-like radioactive melts that formed when the reactor's core melted down during the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. So these melts are composed of just a bunch of stuff that is basically radioactive. Uranium fuel rods, zirconium cladding, graphite control rods, and the sand that was dumped on the melted core to try extinguish the ensuing fire. Laden with 170 tons of irradiated uranium, or 95% of the original fuel, they flowed into the reactor's hall basement rooms and hardened into rock-like formations. I guess it's a lot similar to the same that is with the elephant's foot that's formed into a giant big just mound of just radioactive stuff. Just a big blob, basically. It sounds like the same things happened here with these rock-like formations. There had been numerous efforts over the years to control the FCM's neutron levels, but they have failed to eliminate hazards completely. So in 1987, authorities finished building a concrete and steel sarcophagus called the shelter, which was meant to protect the reactor from the elements, but due to high levels of radiation, the seams of the sarcophagus were not fully sealed, so they couldn't finish it off, because otherwise the people doing it would have probably died. So the rainwater was able to seep in, and water enhances the odds of neutrons striking and splitting uranium nuclei. Heavy rain sometimes sent neutron counts soaring, so the rain leaking in made the chances of this reaction taking place a lot worse. In 1990, a Chernobyl scientist ventured into the damaged reactor hall to spray a gadolinium nitrate solution on an FCM that he feared might go critical, at which point a nuclear chain reaction would begin. The compound, which absorbed neutrons, effectively controlled the FCM's neutron levels. Several years later, the plant installed gadolinium nitrate sprinklers in the shelter's ceiling, but the spray could not penetrate some basement rooms, so again, these rooms were completely inaccessible. So they implemented all these ways to manage these FCMs, but they could only do so much. Chernobyl officials presumed that any criticality risk would fade with the new safe confinement, which was the recent metal structure was built in 2016, over the top of the sarcophagus. Meant as the sarcophagus's replacement, the structure keeps out rainwater and is much more massive than its predecessor, because the sarcophagus is completely falling apart. Neutron counts in most areas have been stable or on the decline since the new safe confinement was built, but neutrons continue to proliferate in room 305-2, as well as 2 other areas. All of these rooms contain tons of FCMs buried under debris, so completely inaccessible. And studies from the ISPNPP suggest that the drying of the fuel is somehow making neutrons ricochet through it more instead of less, causing the splitting of uranium nuclei. So it's completely difficult to control. They can't even access the area to even try control what's going on. According to Hayat, the fear is that the fission reaction in the room will accelerate exponentially, leading to a nuclear explosion. Savaleev said that any explosive reaction can be contained. The blast can lead to the collapse of unstable parts of the shelter, engulfing the NSC with radioactive dust. And to add to that, if all this radioactive dust is just essentially released, even though it may be contained within this shelter, like we saw with Chernobyl, the dust was picked up obviously by the wind and just sent across the globe, to even all as far as reaching Scotland. And that's the real danger. Neutron counts at the reactor are rising slowly, Savaleev added, suggesting that managers still have a few years to figure out how to prevent a nuclear accident. So it sounds like whilst the risk of the nuclear accident is still there, they've got at least a few years to try and manage it and actually prevent that from happening. But conditions inside the reactor are making things extremely difficult for Chernobyl's keepers. For one, radiation levels in the room preclude getting close enough to install sensors. Also, spraying gadolinium nitrate on FCMs is not an option, as these are entombed under concrete. One idea is to create a robot that can withstand the intense radiation for long enough to drill holes in the FCMs to insert boron cylinders, which would mop up neutrons. If you remember, or if you're aware of, initially with Chernobyl, when the disaster occurred, they tried to send in robots to clean up the mess because the radiation would kill people, and it was at that point had killed a lot of people. And the robots could not withstand any of the radiation whatsoever. So they did actually have to resort to using humans, essentially cleaners, to go onto the roof to chuck the graphite off and basically into where the reactor was, which would eventually go into be surrounded by the sarcophagus. But the resurgent fission reactions are not the only problem. Pummeled by high humidity and intense radiation, crumbling FCMs are shedding even more reactive dust, which complicates plans to dismantle the shelter. So they want to dismantle the shelter, but of course if there's the risk of the radioactive dust, then that again, the risk is there of it being swept up and basically travelling across to other countries, to other areas. Ukraine's long-standing aim is to remove all FCMs and bury them in a geological repository. But given all that's going on inside Chernobyl, the country may have a hard time carrying out its plan. Whilst we're in the midst of this craziness going on in the world, we also still have the risk of a second nuclear explosion in Chernobyl. All because of these rock-like structures just filled with complete irradiated uranium. And years of just being battered by rainwater, which is making these nuclear reactions worse. The neutron levels are rising, and the risk of there being another criticality event is not looking far-fetched. It's scary stuff. And the interesting part is you don't really hear much about Chernobyl, other than obviously, I think there's the morbid curiosity people have for Chernobyl and the interest of that event. Obviously, it's an event just filled with everything. You've got radiation, corruption itself, and everything in between. I think people are very morbidly curious about Chernobyl still. People can go on tourist events to the place to look around it, but you don't really hear about the aftermath too much. The damage that Chernobyl caused and continues to cause has affected generations, children being born with all kinds of deformities. The rates of cancer in the nearby surrounding areas is skyrocketed, and Chernobyl just isn't over because there's the health effects that continue, and also now there's the risk of there being another criticality event, another nuclear explosion, all because they just cannot manage the neutron levels, and they just can't reach the area to even think about managing it. It's worrying stuff, but it's incredibly interesting. And like usual, the mainstream media probably will never really pick up on this too much because, again, they're too focused on everything else going on in the world, about the C-19 and all that, to even want to maybe focus on Chernobyl. But I thought that might be interesting to you guys, something a little different. But yeah, let me know what you think down below in the comments. If you'd like to support the channel, remember, please do subscribe to Dare to Fly Today and get ready to take flight. Like and share this video with others. Turn on notifications so you get notified every time I upload a video. If you'd like to support the channel even further, you can donate to my Ko-fi page, you can donate to my PayPal, or even buy Bitcoin, crypto. I've got crypto wallet, so you can donate to me that as well, and all donations are very well appreciated, and I love you all very much. Videos are on the way, a longer style video is on its way, and I can't wait for you to watch it. Hint, it's about transhumanism, so do keep your eyes out for that. I hope you all have a really wonderful, blessed day, guys. Love you all very much. Stay true, stay awake, and stay blessed. And as always, fly high, fear less.